There have always been attacks on what is true. From the serpent in the Garden of Eden asking, "Did God really say?" to today's attempts to squash disinformation. Truth has been under attack. While many of these attacks have been about what the truth is, over the past couple of generations, the idea of truth itself has been under attack. Why is that? In the Gospel of John, Jesus said, "And you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." Could the answer be that simple? Could the attacks on the very idea of truth simply be attacks on our freedom? If that is true, then what can we do to defend not only our freedom, but the very idea of freedom itself? So we'll discuss that next on the Constitution Study.
Neighbors and have a few good friends. Every day we're everyday Americans. Oh, every day we're everyday Americans.
Hello there, everyday Americans. Paul Engel here with the Constitution Study, where we read and study the Constitution. Teach your rising generation be free, and I'm glad you could join me today. I realize we are right in the heart of the holiday season, so I appreciate you taking the time to watch the video, listen to the podcast, read the article. I really do appreciate it, and I hope you'll support the work that we're doing here. In fact, for the holidays, I've got a sale going on from Black Friday through the end of the year. You can find out more at the website constitutionstudy.com/shop. I'll talk a bit more at the end of the episode, but for now, let's talk about this idea of truth. Let's face it, without the idea of truth, we never would have become independent from Great Britain. From the Declaration of Independence, we read, "We hold these truths to be self-evident." There are things that are not only true, but so obviously true, we should not need to write them down. Everyone used to agree they were true. While we rarely agree on what the truth is, we still generally agreed that there was a truth we could find. Knowing there is a truth is one thing. Finding out what that truth is might be something else. So if you want to be free, finding out what the truth is should be our first step. I recently received a question based on an article entitled, "Feds Have Tied the Hands of Tennessee Law Enforcement on Illegal Immigration. Tennessee Leadership Refuses to Push Back." It would appear, at least according to the author of this article, that not only is Tennessee law enforcement being restrained, but our legislature and people as well. The position of federal supremacy comes from a statement I found in the article. According to the Department of Homeland Security, under the Supremacy Clause in the Constitution, the assignment of immigration law and enforcement of those laws is given to the federal government. And in order to comply with a cooperation-only approach, states are relegated to a prone position, at least under the Biden administration. It would seem that the hands of all Tennesseans are well and truly bound by the whims of the Biden administration. That is except for one small thing: truth. According to the Department of Homeland Security, the Supremacy Clause of the Constitution gives the creation and enforcement of immigration laws to the federal government. However, the Supremacy Clause, found in Article 6, Clause 2, says no such thing. In fact, the Supremacy Clause reads, "This Constitution and the laws of the United States which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States shall be the supreme law of the land." In order for any law to be considered the supreme law of the land, it must be made in pursuance or following the Constitution, which specifically states in the 10th Amendment, "The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people." So for a law of the United States to be the supreme law of the land, it must put into effect a power delegated to the United States by the Constitution. Now, a quick look at Article 1, Section 8, Clause 4 shows that Congress has the power to establish a uniform rule of naturalization and uniform laws on the subject of bankruptcies throughout the United States. So Congress has the power to create rules for naturalization, which, according to Webster's 1828 dictionary, is the act of investing an alien with the rights and privileges of a native subject or citizen. It does not grant to Congress the power to regulate immigration, which is the passing or removing into a country for the purpose of permanent residence. In fact, the term immigration does not appear in the Constitution of the United States. This means that Congress does not have the legitimate power to regulate immigration. Therefore, federal immigration laws are not the supreme law of the land and, in fact, are void and meaningless. The Supreme Court stated in the 1886 case Norton v. Shelby County, an unconstitutional act is not a law. It confers no rights. It imposes no duties. It affords no protection. It creates no office. It is in legal contemplation as inoperative as though it had never been passed. So it seems that the federal government has not tied the hands of Tennessee law enforcement or the law enforcement of any other state. Rather, these states have not only tied their own hands, but enslaved themselves to a lie. If only there was a way to set them free. As I've frequently said, I am not a lawyer. But not only was I able to immediately spot the lie from the Department of Homeland Security, I was able to defend my position with proof that what I am saying is true. By the way, there is a lot more to this argument. I've actually written an article about a similar situation with the Department of Education for members of the Patriots program. How was I able to do that so quickly? By following the advice of the first Chief Justice of the United States, John Jay, who said, "Every member of the state ought diligently to read and to study the Constitution of his country and teach the rising generation to be free. By knowing their rights, they will sooner perceive when they are violated and be the better prepared to defend and assert them." By reading and studying the Constitution, I've become so familiar with it that the lie from DHS was as obvious as a $3 bill. Furthermore, that familiarity with the Constitution meant I knew exactly where to go to find the truth of the matter. You may be asking yourself, how could I gain such skills with the truth? I followed John Jay's advice and studied the Constitution. I did not go to law school where, rather than studying the language of the supreme law of the land, students study the opinion of judges. It may seem daunting, but the language of the Constitution is generally very easy to read. After all, it was written so an 18th century farmer could understand it. I've even written a book called The Constitution Study, where I take you through my study of the Constitution in plain conversational English. Yet studying is just the first step. In John chapter 8, Jesus told those who follow him, "If you abide in my word, you are my disciples indeed, and you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." In a way, John Jay was saying the same thing. If you abide in the Constitution, if you read and study it as a disciple, well, then you'll know what the truth about this country is and be freed from the tyranny of those who lie about it. In both cases, though, the impetus is on us. Just as Jesus' followers had to abide in his word to be his disciples, we must spend time in the Constitution, becoming students of that document. If we wish to know the truth, we cannot depend solely on the words of others, but must find it for ourselves. We must always be in search of the truth, not merely content with the words we agree with. For the truth to set us free, it must be actually true. That is why the foundational principles of the Constitution study are, it's only an opinion unless there's proof. An expert opinion is only an opinion unless there's proof. Original documents are our best sources, and always check your sources. In 1983, U.S. Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan was quoted in the Washington Post as saying, "Everyone is entitled to his own opinion, but not his own facts." While not the first person to express that sentiment, Mr. Moynihan is probably one of the best known. We all have opinions, but that doesn't make them all true. While we often look to experts, we have to remember that they can be wrong as well. Millions of Americans have been enslaved to ideas based on opinion rather than fact. Now, the consequences of those opinions have ranged from the benign to the truly horrific. Our entire legal profession is based on the opinion of judges, often completely devoid of facts, if not actually antithetical to them. If we wish to be free, we must start by making sure what we know is actually true. John Jay said that reading and studying the Constitution would not only help you recognize when your freedoms are being violated, but be better prepared to defend and assert them. Imagine walking down the street not only knowing what your rights are, but how you can defend them. I've told stories about standing up to illegal mask mandates, overly curious FBI agents, and questionable U.S. attorneys' offices. That freedom was made possible by knowing my rights and being prepared to defend and assert them. That knowledge came from an honest and forthright study of what the Constitution actually says. Not what I'd been taught in school or what experts like those at DHS said, but reading the actual documents. Because of that, I live free. That's not to say there aren't those who would attempt to take my freedom because of the lies they have been told. Rather than being defenseless, I have the truth on my side. I'm hoping to have a few million Americans on my side as well. Most people are familiar with the Hans Christian Andersen story, The Emperor's New Clothes. Having been conned into believing he was wearing a fine set of clothes, the emperor walked through the village not knowing he was undressed. None of the townsfolk admitted that they could not see the emperor's clothes until a small boy pointed out the truth. The emperor was naked. Once this spell was broken, the entire town took up the cry. Today, many in the federal government walk around believing they are wrapped in robes of power, some because of their own arrogance, others because experts have told them so. Most of the American people seem to go along with the lie, not because they can see the power robes, but because of the lies they have been told. I hope today I've pointed out in some small way how naked federal actors are. The spell will be broken, and you will join me in pointing that out as well. While being a single voice showing the naked power grab of Washington, D.C. may allow me to live free, it will take the courage of millions of Americans to help break the spell nationwide. It will not be easy, and there will be risks involved. If we wish to live up to the words of the national anthem and be the land of the free, we must once again become the home of the brave. That means being brave enough to not only seek for the truth yourself, but to stand up and point out when the federal emperor is as naked as the day he was born. I hope that little bit of truth helps set you free, helps put you on the path to being a free citizen, to not being enslaved to bureaucrats and emperors in Washington, D.C., or maybe even in your state house. It's not an easy walk, but boy, from my point of view, it has been well worth it. And those I've talked to seem to agree with me. And you can find out more at the website constitutionstudy.com. I mentioned a paper, an article I wrote for my Patriots. Check out the Patriots program. Just click the Patriots button on the website. It's an invitation-only program, meaning you have to pass the boot camp. Pass the boot camp and you agree to our pledge, well, you'll get an invitation to come join us. And you can read that and more material that I'm creating. You can participate not only in your own education, but the education of others. Now, as I mentioned, this is the holiday season, and well, for the holidays, I got a couple things going on. First of all of my books are 20% off from Black Friday all the way through the end of the year, December 31st. Check it out. Go to constitutionstudy.com/shop. All of my books are straight, flat, 20% off. I've also got some old shirts and things that I think I'm going to sell off as clearance. I'm still going through and figuring out what I've got and what I'm going to do, so check that out as well. Now, if you want to come join us here at the Constitution Study, as I said, check out the Patriots program. Maybe just join the mailing list. Maybe make a donation to the cause. You can find that at the shop as well. Maybe you can just spread the news, let other people know about the Constitution Study. 2024 is going to be an interesting year. It's, of course, a presidential election. And there's going to be a lot of quote-unquote truths thrown around that we may need to debunk, or at least find facts and evidence to either show whether they're true or whether they're false. Now, we can do that together if you join me. At least that's what I'll be doing. And I'm looking for a few million Americans to join me. All right, I don't have a few million. I'd start with a few thousand, even a few hundred. Let's start here so that we can know the truth. And the truth can not only set us free, but our children, our grandchildren, our neighbors, our friends, and our nation.